The restaurant buzzed with the usual clinking of silverware, the murmur of voices, and the soft glow of the chandeliers. It was supposed to be a moment of celebration. Our daughter Amelia, bright and driven, had just graduated from college. The world was her oyster. But as I sat there proudly watching her, the moment took a sharp turn. Gregory, my husband of 28 years, raised his glass in the air and made an announcement that stopped everything. "I've decided to start a new life without you," he said, the words hanging in the air like a noose. Silence followed, thick and suffocating. Amelia's face froze, her eyes darting from her father to me, unsure of what to make of it. The clinking stopped. Conversations died mid-sentence. The air was thick with tension as every eye in the room turned towards us. I stared at him, my heart pounding in my chest. It wasn't the words that hit me. It was the coldness in his eyes, the finality in his tone. His betrayal hung there unspoken but clear. I should have cried, I should have screamed, but instead I smiled. "Congratulations on your honesty," I said, my voice even, my lips barely trembling. No one knew how much the weight of his words crushed me. No one knew how in that moment I realized the truth. He had been lying to me for years, and I had been too blind to see it. I had spent the last 28 years of my life supporting Gregory, believing in the narrative that we had built together. I was his wife, his partner, his constant, the one who had put everything aside for the family. My career dreams, my personal ambitions, my passions. They had all been tucked away, neatly boxed up in the back of my mind, filed under someday. My role as a wife and mother took precedence. And for years I had done it all willingly. I had raised Amelia with the love and devotion of someone who never questioned whether I had given up too much of myself. She was my pride, my purpose. Gregory, on the other hand, had always seemed to be just there. When we first married, Gregory was the dream, the charming, ambitious man with a twinkle in his eye. We were inseparable. He would sweep me off my feet with little surprises, promises of adventure, and whispers of a future we'd build together. But as the years went on, something began to change. Subtle at first, a distant look in his eyes, longer hours at work, late nights on the phone. I told myself it was nothing, that he was just focused on his career, that we were just going through a phase. I didn't question it. I couldn't afford to. My whole identity had become entwined with this family, this life. As the years passed, I sank deeper into the role of the supportive wife. His successes became my successes. I sacrificed my career so that he could have his. I sacrificed time with friends, time for myself, all to nurture the life he had envisioned. Amelia was growing up fast and I was happy. I was content, I told myself. Even if my own dreams seemed to be slowly fading into the background, I thought, this is enough. This is the life we built together. But then came the small signs that I had pushed aside, the quick glances at his phone when I walked into the room, the strange tone in his voice when he talked about his late-night work meetings, his distant eyes when we talked about anything that mattered to me. He was slipping away, but I was too busy to see it. I had convinced myself it was just a phase, that we would get through it, that love would be enough. But love wasn't enough. And as I sat there at that table watching Gregory announce his departure, I felt my whole world crash down around me. The life I had built, the sacrifice I had made, suddenly seemed like a lie. And in that moment, I felt a bitterness stir inside me, something dark and cold that I had buried for far too long. The night Gregory made his announcement, my world shattered. But the truth of his betrayal didn't hit me all at once. No, it was the slow, gradual realization that the life I thought I knew had been a carefully constructed illusion. He hadn't just decided to leave me. He had been leaving me long before that night. In the weeks that followed, I began to see the signs that I had been blind to for so long. There was the way he avoided my eyes, the evasiveness when I asked about his work. He was always busy, always caught up, but somehow never with me. I found his phone, a quick glance revealing messages I never should have read. They were innocent enough at first, the kind of messages that could be easily explained away, work meetings, urgent texts. But then, there were the late-night calls I'd overhear when he thought I was asleep, the whispers of a woman's voice. I confronted him once, the tightness in my chest building as the realization began to seep in. "Who is she, Gregory?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but the tremble was unmistakable. His face went pale, and for a moment I thought he might tell me the truth. But instead, he just stood there looking guilty and confused. "What are you talking about?" he muttered. "There's no one else." But there was. I knew it. I could feel it in my gut. It was in the way he pulled away from me, in the way his once warm and attentive gaze now felt cold and indifferent. I didn't need the evidence to know the truth. His betrayal was written all over his face. That night, I lay awake in our bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. How could I have been so blind? How could I have given everything, and yet he was taking it all away so effortlessly? The hurt, the anger, the frustration, they all swirled inside me, but there was something deeper that was beginning to form, a cold, steely resolve. I wasn't going to let him win. I wasn't going to let him destroy me. I began to think of all the sacrifices I had made over the years spent waiting for him to come home, the countless nights spent alone while he worked. I thought of my career, the one I had put on hold for him, and of my own desires and dreams that had faded into the background as I focused on his needs. How many times had I chosen him over myself? How many times had I been a shadow in my own life? It was time to stop being a shadow. It was time to take back control. I wasn't going to cry, and I wasn't going to beg him to stay. There would be no pleading, no desperate phone calls or tear-filled pleas. Gregory had already made his decision, and now it was time for me to make mine. I began planning carefully and methodically, like a chess player considering her next move. I knew I couldn't act out of anger no matter how much I wanted to. That would only give him the satisfaction of seeing me weak, vulnerable. I would not be his victim. This time I would be the one in control. First, I focused on the things that had kept me tied to him all these years. Our shared finances, the house we had built together, the business he had started. For years I had played the role of the dutiful wife, but I had my own talents, my own skills. I hadn't let them go entirely. I was sharp, I was resourceful, and I would use everything at my disposal to turn the tide in my favor. I began by reviewing our joint accounts. His sudden withdrawal from the family, his decision to start fresh, meant that I had an opportunity to take the financial reins. I started looking into our investments, scrutinizing our business dealings, and researching the properties we owned. I wasn't just going to take his money, I was going to secure my own future. If he thought he could leave me with nothing, he was sorely mistaken. But money wasn't the only thing I had to consider. I also had to think about our daughter Amelia. She was caught in the middle of all of this, and I knew that a messy divorce could affect her just as much as it would affect me. I wanted to make sure that no matter what happened, she would be taken care of. But I also needed to make her understand that I wasn't just going to let her father destroy our family. He had already taken so much from me, and I would not allow him to take any more. So I approached Amelia, carefully knowing that this would be a difficult conversation. "Sweetheart," I began as we sat together in the living room, "I need you to know that this isn't your fault. Your father and we've reached a point where we can't go back. But I want you to understand that I am not giving up. I'm not going to let him tear apart everything we've built." Her eyes were wide, filled with confusion and fear. "But Mom, I don't want you to be alone. I don't want us to fall apart." I smiled softly, taking her hand in mine. "We won't. You and I are stronger than that. And together we'll make it through this. I'm going to fight Amelia, not just for me, but for you, for us." I could see the resolve in her eyes begin to form. She might not have fully understood the weight of what was happening, but she knew her mother was strong, and that was all that mattered. As the days passed, I started to put my plan into motion. Gregory's affair, his betrayal, had given me the fuel I needed. I wasn't just going to sit idly by while he destroyed our lives. I would rebuild, I would recover, and I would come out of this stronger than ever. And when the time came, when everything was in place, I would confront him. Not with anger or tears, but with the quiet strength of a woman who had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. The days turned into weeks, And the more I worked through my plan, the more I felt the pieces of my life fall into place. Each step I took, each decision I made pulled me further from the shattered woman I had been into someone entirely new. The person I was becoming felt unfamiliar, but also empowering. For the first time in years, I was reclaiming my life. I wasn't just a wife and mother anymore. I was a woman who could stand on her own. I began with the business. I'd been so consumed with the idea of being the perfect wife that I had neglected the fact that I had a degree in marketing, a sharp mind for business, and years of untapped potential. With Gregory's investments tied up in a failing company, I had the leverage I needed to step in. I called the partners, made appointments with financial advisors, and slowly began taking control of the business. No longer would I be left in the shadows of his success. This was mine now. As I navigated the financial landscape, I began to see how much I had overlooked during the years of supporting Gregory's dreams. I remembered the small passion projects I had once entertained, the small business ideas that I had shelved when his needs took priority. I resurrected one of those ideas, a marketing consultancy. It wasn't a huge leap, but it was a start. I spent evenings poring over market strategies, reaching out to old contacts, and offering my expertise to small businesses in need of help. It felt like a small victory, but it was mine, and it fueled me. Amelia, though still young, noticed the change in me. She had been quiet since the confrontation with Gregory, but as the weeks passed, I could see her eyes light up whenever I spoke about my work, about my plans. She saw a side of me that she had never seen before, the woman I had put on hold for so long. "Mom, you're really doing it," she said one evening as we sat together in the kitchen, going over some ideas for a business pitch I was preparing. "You're making everything work, aren't you?" I smiled at her, the pride and gratitude filling my chest. "I am, sweetheart. I'm making my way. And so will you. Remember, no matter what life throws at us, we always have a choice. We can rise from it." It wasn't just about the money or the business anymore. It was about proving to myself that I wasn't powerless, that I wasn't invisible. For the first time in years, I was the one in control. Gregory had thought he could break me, but instead, he had unknowingly pushed me into the very thing I needed: independence. With each passing day, I felt stronger, more determined. I wasn't going to be a victim. I wasn't going to shrink into the background, hidden beneath the weight of his betrayal. I was going to rise above it, and no matter how hard he tried to undermine me, he would find that the woman he once knew was gone. In her place was a force to be reckoned with. The anger I had once felt began to dissipate, replaced by clarity. It wasn't about punishing him anymore. It was about taking back what I had lost. I didn't need his validation. I didn't need his approval. I had everything I needed to rebuild my life, and I was doing it step by step. There were moments when I still felt the sting of his betrayal, when the weight of it seemed too much to bear. But those moments were fleeting. The more I invested in myself, the more I realized that I was capable of so much more than I had ever given myself credit for. My worth wasn't tied to his decisions, it was mine, and no one could take that away. As I sat at my desk reviewing a proposal I'd just received, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I was on my way. I was doing this. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally living for myself. I thought I had it all figured out. I had my plan in motion, my business growing, and my sense of self returning with each passing day. But life, as it always does, had another twist in store for me, and this one would shake me to my core. It started with a call from Amelia. Her voice was tight, strained. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something. It's about Dad." My heart skipped a beat. For weeks, I had been focused on my own healing, on my own growth, and I hadn't thought much about what Gregory was doing or how he was coping with our separation. It didn't matter, or so I thought, but something in her tone told me that this wasn't just another casual update about him. This was something more. When I arrived at the cafe where she'd asked to meet, Amelia looked different. Her usual composure was gone, replaced by a look of confusion and fear. She hadn't cried, but I could see the weight of whatever she was holding inside. "Mom," she started, hesitating, "I found something. Something I think you need to know." She slid a folder across the table to me. Inside were copies of documents, photos, and a few bank statements I didn't recognize. I felt a lump form in my throat as I glanced through them. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Names, numbers, and dates that didn't add up. But then I saw it. There, buried among the papers, was an account in Gregory's name, one I had never seen before. And in the account there were large transfers of money to a name I didn't recognize. "Who is this?" I asked, pointing to the name. My hands were shaking now, my mind racing. "It's the woman," Amelia said quietly, her voice breaking. "The one Dad's been seeing. I found her name, and the transfers he's been giving her money." I felt the room spin. The shock hit me like a wave, and I struggled to keep my composure. I had always suspected something was off, but this was the confirmation I didn't want. Gregory's betrayal had been deeper than I ever imagined. Not only had he been unfaithful, but he had been financially supporting this woman. All this time, while I had been putting in the effort to rebuild my life, he had been building a new one on the side. I looked up at Amelia, her face pale with the weight of the truth. She looked at me, eyes wide with regret. "I didn't want to tell you, Mom, but I thought you needed to know. You have to be careful now." I nodded slowly, my heart pounding. This was more than I could have ever anticipated. I wasn't just facing his emotional betrayal. I was facing his manipulation of our lives, our finances, our future. He had been so careful, so calculating in his actions, but now the truth was laid bare before me. "Thank you for telling me, Amelia," I said, trying to steady my voice. "I'm going to handle this." But I knew this was no longer just about me and Gregory. This was about taking control not just of my own future, but of everything he had tried to manipulate. I was no longer going to let him use me, use my trust, use my love for him as his personal pawn. He had crossed a line that I couldn't allow him to get away with. As I walked out of the cafe, my mind whirred with plans, with schemes, and with possibilities. I had always believed that I was the one who had been wronged, but now I realized I had been blind to how deep the betrayal ran. But this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new, something bigger than revenge. It was about restoring my dignity, my pride, and my future. The woman who had quietly borne the weight of a failed marriage, who had been emotionally suffocated, was gone. She was replaced by someone who would stop at nothing to reclaim what was rightfully hers. I wasn't going to let him get away with this, not this time. I could feel it. This was just the beginning of the reckoning. The days that followed were filled with a simmering anticipation, as if every moment was leading up to an inevitable confrontation. I knew the time had come to face Gregory, to demand answers, and to finally make him pay for everything he had done, not just to me, but to our family, our daughter, and the life we had built together. He had no idea what was coming, and it would be my final act of strength. I'd spent the last few weeks gathering every piece of evidence I needed. I had the bank statements, Amelia found the receipts, and the email exchanges between Gregory and the woman he had been seeing. I had even hired a private investigator just in case there were more secrets hidden beneath the surface. The web of deceit had been wide, but now it was tangled in his own lies. The plan was set. I would confront him, and I would leave no stone unturned. The night before the confrontation, I sat alone in our home, the quiet around me almost deafening. It was the first time in years that I didn't feel like the walls were closing in on me. I had spent so much of my life feeling like I was stuck, like I was waiting for something to change. But now I was the one in control. I had taken back my power. When Gregory walked through the door that evening, he didn't suspect a thing. He was still the man who thought he could manipulate his way through everything, through me, through Amelia, through the life we had built. He came in with his usual tired expression, dropping his briefcase on the table as if nothing had changed. I watched him for a moment, feeling a strange mixture of pity and contempt. "Gregory," I said calmly, my voice steady, "we need to talk." He looked up, startled by the tone in my voice. His eyes darted quickly as if trying to read the situation, but he was already too late. "What's this about?" he asked, trying to brush it off with the nonchalance that had come to define him in recent years. "I've had a long day. Can't we just—" No, I cut him off. "I've had a long day too, and you've had a long life of lies that I'm done pretending I don't know about." The words hung in the air, thick and heavy like an invisible curtain between us. Gregory froze. His confident facade cracked just for a second. It was all I needed. You think I don't know, don't you? I continued walking toward him slowly, every step calculated. You think I didn't see the signs? Your late nights, your secretive behavior, the distance between us. You thought I was too blind to see it all, didn't you? Gregory's face shifted, panic flickering in his eyes. He opened his mouth to speak, but I didn't give him the chance. You've been seeing her, I said, sliding the folder across the table towards him. The documents, proof of his affair, the money he had been sending her, were all there, laid bare in front of him. I watched his eyes widen as he saw the evidence. This is nonsense, he muttered, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. I didn't mean for it to happen. Stop! I interjected, my voice cutting through his lies like a knife. You didn't mean for it to happen. You didn't mean to betray me. All of those years, all of that trust, and you're standing here telling me it wasn't intentional. You've been supporting her, Gregory. All this time, you've been lying to me, to our daughter. And for what? His jaw clenched. He stood up, pacing now, clearly agitated. You're blowing this out of proportion. I never wanted to hurt you, Bianca. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. I laughed, a dry, bitter sound that surprised even me. A mistake. You call years of lies and deception a mistake. I stood up, moving closer, my hands clenched at my sides. You've been stealing from me, from us. Not just money. You've been stealing my time, my love, my life. And now you expect me to just forgive you. Gregory's face turned a deeper shade of red. He didn't know how to handle me now. He had never seen me like this, strong, resolute, unafraid. His eyes flicked to the door as if weighing whether he could escape, but I stood in front of it, blocking his way. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Gregory. I said, my voice low but steady. I'm not giving you the satisfaction of thinking you can make everything right with an apology. What you've done is unforgivable. But you will pay for it. You will pay for everything you've taken from me. He opened his mouth to protest, but the words died in his throat as he saw the unyielding fire in my eyes. This wasn't the woman he had left behind. This was the woman he had underestimated, the woman he thought he could control. And now she was taking everything back. I'm taking everything, I continued. The house, the business, the life you tried to steal from me. You'll leave. And you'll leave empty-handed. For a moment, Gregory just stood there, stunned into silence. Then slowly he turned away. His shoulders slumped, defeated. The power had shifted. It was no longer his story, it was mine. As he walked out, I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel satisfaction, not yet. But I felt something else, something stronger. It was the beginning of my life, the life I had always deserved. And this time it was all on my terms.